Good morning, everyone, and welcome to UMAP Session 4. My name is Lauren Winters, and I am a UMAP board member at large. I am also the director of First United Methodist Preschool in Gainesville, which right now I hope it's not as rainy and cold and gross as it is here outside wherever you are. To get us started, I think it would just be kind of fun to, if you want to type in the chat box where you are watching from. It's always cool to see, what areas we have attending these conferences. But enough about me. I'm going to go ahead and introduce our speaker for this morning. Her name is Kaylee Kukla, and I have had the pleasure of knowing her since college. We probably got annoyed at looking at each other's faces because we were together for 3 years straight in our cohort at UF and the College of Education. And so I know that she knows what she's talking about. She's got a lot of great experiences, and it's fun to kind of come full circle with her to introduce all the fun things that she's learned since we were in school together. So without further ado, I'm turning it over to Ms. Kaylee.
Well, good morning. Thank you, Lauren, so much.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's been, gosh, it feels like a few days ago, and I can't believe it's been over 10 years. So that's pretty crazy.
Right.
Yeah. So my name is Kaylee Kukla, and I started off at UF in the Unified Early Childhood Special Education Program. Found myself doing things like early intervention, teaching preschool. Then I went into business with my husband. And then I became a mom in 2014 and realized that with all of my background knowledge, with all of my experience, it was really hard to figure out what to do in terms of behavior. And I started looking into when my son was about a year old and started moving, right? You got to figure out how you're going to discipline your kid once they start reaching for things they're not supposed to touch. And I knew from my background that I didn't want to spank. And that's really all I knew. So I started reading parenting books and had a really strong foundation in developmentally appropriate practice, right? They drill that into us at UF. And most of the parenting books were not developmentally appropriate. They were assuming that children had brain development that children just don't have. So I started looking for developmentally appropriate discipline or behavior management. And I found myself teaching developmental play classes to parents, and parents, all they wanted to ask me is, what do I do when? What about this? How do you handle this behavior or this situation? And that was about 5 years ago. And that now spiraled into what I do today, which is parent consulting, school consulting, all around behavior and all using developmentally appropriate practice firmly rooted in cognitive and social emotional brain development. And so when we talk about managing big feelings, we're going to have 2 parts to this, all right, and Q&A to split up the middle. We're going to spend a lot of time just talking about the lens through which we look at behavior, because behavior is going to be how kids tell us about their big feelings. And we think that these big feelings just happen when there's an explosion or when there's an episode, when they run under the table and hide, when they start crying, when they attack their friends, whatever that behavior might be. But there's things we can do proactively too to help temper these emotions and to really give kids the skills and the ability to express these things, what we would deem more appropriately. All right. Although I was just talking, doing a live yesterday, and I told the person who was interviewing me, I'm like, sometimes I really am envious of kids' ability to just let out their emotion. They're so efficient at processing these big feelings. They get it out with a big cry or a big action, and then they're over it, right? They turn it on and off so quickly. Wouldn't it be nice if, we could do that and we didn't bottle it up and then have to, deal with it later on down the road. So,
Haley,
yeah.
I'm going to stop you really quick. Thank you guys for responding to the chat, but I want you to make sure that if you have a question that you actually type it in the Whova chat area in the app, because that way we can track them, and anyone else who wants to ask a question can keep track of the answers that we have. It will probably get lost in the Zoom chat, since it's it's just kind of, here and gone. But anyone who wants to come view this later or has any similar questions can go back through and read the questions that have been posted and the answers. So please make sure to post them there. Thank you.
Great information. I'm not tech savvy, so which is great. I have two helpers to help with that. I'm just here to talk, which is what I'm really good at. What I enjoy doing. Okay, so just a brief overview, and real quick, Lauren, we just discovered where the handouts are. Before I forget, I wanted to show you guys, these are now uploaded in the Whova app, right?
Sort of, kind of. We'll have to come back to it. There was a glitch in it. So the handouts that Kaylee's referring to, we were attempting to upload them to where you could access them in the session information, but they're not showing up. So that'll be something that we'll just figure out within the next week or so. And then we can send a message in the Whova app saying, hey, you can find them here. So that's to be announced. Okay,
no worries. So what I'll do to accommodate that is I'll switch. I'm screen sharing now my presentation, but I'll show you guys throughout the presentation when I'm referring to it, because I'm really big on giving you really actionable, tangible tools. And so I find when I first started switching my lens and using these tools and using these different scripts and stuff, I would put Post-it notes around. Now I'm at home with my kids, so they were on kitchen cabinets, on the dashboard of my car. In classrooms, it might be by your calendar or by the door. But I'm really big on those really tangible, concrete supports, scaffolding, right? We love to scaffold. So, okay, here's my most recent family portrait. That's my 3-year-old, and then my 6-year-old, and my dear husband. And we live in Jupiter, Florida. So I don't know if you can see the lighthouse in the background, but this is just, this is my life right here, the beach and the water and my sweet family. So today's agenda, we're gonna go through and we're gonna spend time talking about behavior as communication. I really wanna talk about this idea of behavior being a choice. So, because so often the way kids tell us about how they're feeling is through behavior, it's really important to me to help reframe that when we're feeling really emotional, when we are emotionally flooded, we don't necessarily choose consciously choose how we express those feelings. I, as an adult, have trouble doing that. So then we're going to talk about, well, what is this behavior telling me? It's important that we start getting curious and we start being able to recognize, okay, this is the underlying message that is paired with this behavior. This is how I can meet that need. One of my favorite shifts also to help is limit testing to limit learning. I think semantics, words really matter here, and limit test, well, sorry, I won't go down that rabbit hole. We'll get to that. I have a whole slide about that. We'll talk a little bit about meltdowns. Really, that's embedded throughout the conversation. And then listening. As a parent and as a teacher, listening is a big deal. And what I find so interesting, that even in like pre-K evals, when skill sets, like the little checklists and stuff that we fill out for conferences and progress monitoring and stuff like that, listening is a checkbox. And I'm going to break listening down into a skill set because then that often helps us facilitate better listening. Okay, so first and foremost, behavior. This has become a really popular graphic or analogy for people to use to explain behavior. Behavior is what we see on the surface. Icebergs are smaller on the surface and they're ginormous underneath, right? I always think of Elsa and whatever that ice place she went to in Frozen 2. Anyway, so there's so much stuff going underneath the surface. The other analogy that really helps bring it home for me is I think of behavior as a symptom. So like a fever, when we get sick and we're running a fever, we can take fever reducer, which is going to help get rid of the symptom, right? It's going to help get rid of the fever. But if we're having a virus, or we have a virus, right, reducing the fever is just to help us stay comfortable, because fevers usually feel pretty icky. But if we have an infection somewhere and we just keep taking fever reducer, we're not actually getting to the issue. We're not getting to the root cause of that behavior. And we could end up getting sicker because we're not treating the infection, we're just treating the fever. We've got to get to that root cause. And when we get to that root cause, by nature, we're going to be able to address what we see. And I'm going to talk a little bit about, this is why positive behavior support, which really came popular when I was a child and I was in school, right? So the light system, the change your color. In preschool, I had bears that, I'll tell you a quick story. I was 4 years old, and this is one of my earliest memories. And we had bears that you put in the caves. So mean. And I one time had to put my bear in the cave because I snatched a doll away from another girl. And because she was taking it out of the center. I remember this very specifically. She was taking it out of the center and we weren't allowed to do that. So I snatched it. I was a rule follower. I snatched it away from her to put it back in the center, and because I wanted to play with it. Teacher didn't see that, just saw me snatching, had to put my bear in the cave. I became so upset that I was crying so loudly, I had to go sit in the director's office to calm down. They could not console me. So that's an example of, just looking at the behavior, and that we can get into dangerous territory when we're just looking at behavior and not considering what's going on underneath, because it turns into shame and we're not actually helping develop any skills. So if we're talking about missing skills, which we're going to talk a lot about today, because those are the skills that help kids communicate their big feelings, we've got to get to that root cause so that we know how to help them, instead of just assuming that behavior is a choice and giving them gold stars, giving them checklists, keeping them on green, or keeping all their bears out of the cave. I haven't told that story in a long time. I wasn't planning on sharing that. So there you go. So brain evolution, I love talking about this. I could talk about this all day, but to give you a brief summary. So our brain, there's lots of different parts of our brain. We're going to talk about 3 different parts of it today. We're going to talk about the reptilian brain, also called the lizard brain, the downstairs brain, fight or flight. It's where the instincts happen. So the lizard brain, or the reptilian brain, is what scans for threats in the environment. And then if it detects a threat, it's going to send us into an instinct of fight, flight, or freeze. We're not talking about, so I read really interesting stuff on the freeze. I call these the blue kids. These are the kids that are unresponsive and super disconnected, and they've shut down. That's an even bigger fear response than the kids who become aggressive or run away and hide, the fight and the flight. Freeze is way down there, very deep in protective mode. So that's the reptile brain. When we see a kid engaged in these behaviors, aggression, so that's anything from hitting, pushing, kicking, spitting, scratching, biting. You could probably give me throwing, lots of possibilities there. Running away or shutting down. There are no words here. So this is where we see like true meltdowns, true tantrums, impulsive aggression, right? That's them saying, I don't feel safe. I need help feeling safe. Their threat detection has been activated and they have detected a threat, and now they are instinctually responding. Then we move up into the mammal brain. So this is where the attachment system is, because all mammal babies are dependent on their mothers for survival when they're born. So we need this imprint, this attachment system to survive. This is where feelings are, emotions are. It's also called the limbic system. It still would be considered the downstairs brain, the attachment system, all of those things. It's referring to the emotional brain. This is referring to this section of the brain. This is, I need you to see me, hear me, and understand me. You're not hearing me. I'm gonna yell louder. It's my turn. I want it now. When kids are about 4 years old, the insult becomes, you can't come to my birthday party. You're not my friend anymore. So these are mean words, name calling, insults. They probably don't do it too much at school, but at home you hear, you know, you're a mean mommy. I don't like you. When they get a little older, it can, I hate you. You're so dumb. That's the emotional brain. You're not hearing me. I really want you to understand me. Then we're going to bump up the neocortex, okay, the prefrontal cortex, the upstairs brain. This is where all the executive functions are housed: cognition, language, sensory perception, spatial reasoning. The logical brain is here. So what's really interesting about this is good behavior happens in the neocortex. Good behavior, probably all the behavior we would deem as good, or the green behavior or the green zone or whatever you want to call it, happens in this part of the brain. What's really hard about this is we cannot access this part of the brain if we're downstairs. If we feel stressed out, if we're overwhelmed, if we've detected a threat, if we're feeling sad, unseen, unheard, disconnected, we cannot access those executive functions. We have to, just like Maslow's pyramid, right? We have to look at the bottom pieces of the pyramid and say, yes, you are safe. Yes, I see you, hear you, understand you, to then access those executive functions. Adults are the same way. We are not excluded from this, and this part of the brain doesn't fully form until the mid-20s. It's just starting to come online around age 2 and 3, right? 2-year-olds are still extremely impulsive. There's very little brakes installed in their brain at that age. 3, there's still very little brakes. 4, you start seeing it a little more depending on the child. So early childhood, so much of our job is to lend our executive function, which is hard when we're under stress. It's even more difficult for children because those brain connections are barely flickering at that point. So what that means is we cannot expect a child to be in a higher brain state than we are. So much of this is about regulating ourselves so that we can access these executive functions, which honestly is easier in a classroom than it is in personal life, right? My own kids trigger me a lot more than when I'm in a classroom working with clients, to be perfectly honest. But it's still hard when you're coming in and you're managing a lot of little people, a lot of big feelings, and life has stress, right? We're humans. We don't walk in and become automatically robotic and get to turn off all the other things that are going on in our lives. And so that means that when they're having a hard time, we can't get sucked into their storm. We can't take it personally. That's Q-tip, quit taking it personally. We've got to turn on our anthropologist viewpoint. We've got to get curious. We've got to empathize and let go of judgment and shame and blame. And that's why these mindset shifts are so important. And that's why we're gonna spend a lot of time talking about them. Because if we're seeing the behavior as they're having a really hard time, they've lost control, they need help feeling safe right now, that's going to change our energy. And energy is a very big part of that threat detection system. We can tell the difference between someone coming over with co-regulating calm energy and dysregulated energy that we're going to regulate with them, right? Okay, so this is, yeah, but sometimes they can do it. I get that sometimes. Yeah, but sometimes the kid can do it. I'm like, yeah, sometimes I can too. If I'm well rested, if my blood sugar is, you know, even, if my bladder's empty, I'm not jumping around having to go to the bathroom, get really irritable when I do and I can't leave. If I'm not stressed out, you know, I can too. If I'm stressed, if I'm overwhelmed, if I'm uncomfortable, if I'm tired, my executive functions get turned off too. So stress is the first way that we turn it off. And just being said, we cannot hold our children, little kids, to a higher standard than we hold ourselves. So this is what I call the flicker effect, because stress is going to cause these connections in the brain to turn off, and we're going to sit and live in either that limbic system, that emotional brain, or go downstairs into that fight or flight. So the way I like to, you know, talk to parents and teachers about this is, how do you act to your loved ones? You know, you're safe people, because you as teachers are these kids, you're in their safe people category. Next to their parents, I mean, you're the other primary caregiver, most of us, right? They spend a lot of time with you, sometimes even more time with you than they do their parents. So how do we act to our safe people, our loved ones, when we have a hard day? I'll own it. I get short, irritable, lose my temper easily, get annoyed faster. I'm less patient. It's really hard to rein it in when I've had a hard day. Okay, so I'm seeing, I don't have my chat box up, so I see that there are comments coming in the Zoom chat. Just to remind you guys, Lauren asked that you put the questions in the Hoover app, because then she's going to inject some questions and we're going to talk a little bit about it.
Yep. So Kaylee, so far, it's just been comments of where people are from, as well as there was a compliment for you that this is a great explanation. Thank you. It makes so much sense. No other questions have come through on the app yet, so I'm on it. I'll let you know if there's something there.
Okay, great. Thanks so much, Lauren. So one of the big adult, I think this is a fear. This comes from fears. I can't let them act this way. If they act this way, if I let them think it's okay to hit, if I let them think it's okay to interrupt me while I'm talking, or scream and cry every time they're disappointed and don't get their way, if I let them act that way, they're going to think it's okay. I'm giving them permission. Well, first of all, we can't control how they act. So giving yourself permission to, I really have no control over how they react to the situation. That's okay. What I can do, so stop controlling the behavior, right? Let go of the idea that we can control the behavior. This is so liberating. And if you go back to the iceberg analogy, remember that if we get to that root cause, what's underneath the surface, that's their message. If we focus on their message and help them get that across, the behavior is automatically going to change. So letting go of, I can't let them act that way, and focusing on the message. First of all, it's liberating as an adult with so many little people and feelings and thoughts to manage and keep track of. But it's also, it automatically sets us up for empathy. It automatically softens our energy and lets them know, I'm on your side. I'm here to help. And I mean, preschool teachers and directors have the biggest hearts of any people I've worked with. And it's just such a beautiful thing when we give ourselves permission to look past the behavior. You know, the kid, and here's the thing, right? The aggressive kids, I call them red kids because they go hot fast, they go red. They become really noticeable because we have to address their behavior, because it can become dangerous sometimes. Throwing chairs, flipping tables, throwing toys, dangerous for other kids. But their message is really the same as the little kid who won't talk and sits down at circle time with their head down and won't make eye contact. They've shut down. Their message is the same. They just have a different way of expressing it. So if we get to the heart of their message, we can change the behavior. Children learn emotional regulation. Please hear me when I say this. They learn emotional regulation through experiencing emotions and feeling safe when they feel those emotions. In order to get emotional regulation, we have to have emotional safety first, because emotions create sensations in our body. So being worried, the butterflies, getting cold, maybe the shivers, this discomfort I'm feeling. If that doesn't start feeling safe, if I don't say, hey, I know this feeling, this is a safe feeling, I can handle this, I can't take the next step of how do I want to handle it, the emotional regulation piece. We've got to feel safe first. So that's our first job as a care provider, is to help our children feel safe. That means we've got to feel safe with big feelings. When a kid starts throwing down, when they start getting angry, when you start hearing a ruckus over here over a toy car or a doll or whatever it is, this is safe, I can handle this. So we bring that energy of safety and confidence into the situation. That's the first step for teaching emotional regulation. So aggression, we're gonna just go through this so many times. Aggression, I need help feeling safe. Meltdowns, I need help feeling safe. Running, runners, anybody have runners? I need help feeling safe. That's their flight. Hiding, kids when they go under tables, when they maybe throw something over their heads, I need help feeling safe. They've gone all the way downstairs. So we match that with, this is safe, I've got you, we can handle this. And this is where I'm gonna switch the screen share real quick. Hold on, let me, and show you what I did for you, because this is something I like to do. Where'd it go? For my clients, people I work for, and I think that this is just super practical tools. This is a handout I created, and they're about Post-it note size. So you can get it, you can print it out, and you can laminate. If you're like me, I love laminating things. I'd be honored if you laminated so many pictures. Or you can just cut them out and tape them to places. And these are what I say to myself when I'm going into a situation. I trust you can handle this big feeling. I'm right here if you need me. When kids are getting aggressive, so my throwers, hitters, biters, kickers, I don't know, you know, the safety things. Safety first, talk later. So this can happen in classrooms. I see it happen a lot in homes. Don't do that, stop doing that, no, don't hit her, you know, and we're yelling across the room and the kid is meanwhile like hulking it, you know. No, move first, establish safety first, talk later. This is physical. We're gonna talk about prioritizing things. This takes top priority in this moment. So I'm gonna reference this throughout the workshop. Oh, it's not letting me. I just wanted to show some of this to you. So here it is, talk less, move more. They're having a hard time not giving me a hard time. All right, so there are a few scripts on here that you'll have access to once they're posted, but yeah, that is what I wanted to point out for that. So when this is going down, when these behaviors are going down in your classroom, that's where your brain is going. Other behaviors, so this is what happens when they're in their emotional brain, whining. I need to feel heard. You're not hearing me. There's this disconnection here. So instead of meeting a kid, I can't hear you when you talk like that. Use your big girl voice. We can teach a skill while we model what we want, by modeling what we want them to say instead, while validating them, while answering that underlying need. You really want me to hold you right now, and my hands are full. I'll pick you up as soon as I'm done doing this. I can't hold you right now. You can go ask Ms. Smith to pick you up. She's ready for a cuddle. So again, looking past the behavior and focusing on their message. Back talk. I need you to hear me. You're not hearing me. I'm going to say it again louder. Same thing with mean words. I'm going to say it in a bigger way because I need you to understand my message. The other one, getting stuck. So looping on the same thing. I don't want to go. I don't want to go. I don't want to go. I want mommy. I want mommy. I want mommy. The kids who loop over and over and over again. They're stuck in their limbic system. This is rigidity too. So mental flexibility is executive function. Rigidity, they get stuck in this emotional brain. I need to feel connected. Now, I'm giving you puzzle pieces here. Don't worry, I'm not going to leave you hanging. We're going to spend the whole second hour talking about what to do in these situations. I'm just giving you puzzle pieces right now. This is the message. I want you to think of that child. I want you to think of their behaviors, list them out, decode them, and then second part, we're going to start talking about strategies and tangible ways to help them. I promise I won't leave you hanging. I always feel like you guys are gonna check out. So this is a really bad example because it's kind of pixelated. Let me see if I don't even think I have a behavior chart to show you. I do have these rating scales. I have used these. So, this is a size, or no, these are emotional things. So I'm happy, calm, I'm a little anxious, worried. So this is something where it's a size 1 problem, it's no big deal, and maybe they have a size 5 reaction, so they get ragey and furious. Calming strategies. So I do have pictures of calming strategies, conscious discipline stuff. So calming strategies, like different types of breathing stuff, okay? These are great pre-teaching the skills, whole group instruction. Maybe you pull out a couple kids that need a little more help with this and do it in like a small group or something like that. Not in the moment. We're not gonna go up to a kid and talk about, you seem really upset. You just hit your friend. Let's pick a calming strategy right now. We're not gonna do that right now. We wanna pre-teach it, and we can do it during the reflection. But if they've already hit, if they've already exploded, if they've already done this thing, we need to go in and we need to help them. We're not going to point them to this kind of stuff in the heat of the moment. It doesn't work. So, and we're going to talk about how to use that, how to use these things. I have a whole stack of things to show you guys. So we're going to talk about how to use that stuff in the next section a little bit more. Yes,
okay,
ma'am.
Kaylee, just want to update you on time. So we have about an hour left.
Okay. We're on number 4. I'm going to fast forward through these things. I got stuck on behavior. Okay. So they're always testing the limits. Okay. Yeah, they're limit learners. So, remember Piaget, little scientist, my favorite age for kiddos. Kids are limit learners. So they're going to learn boundaries and what's acceptable, what's not acceptable through exploration and experimentation. And they are constantly going to ask their primary caregivers, can you handle it? Is this okay? Are you sure it's not okay this time again? What about now? Yeah, all the time, that's not okay. No, but our first job is to get really clear on our limits and expectations and be confident in them. And that's going to be the assertive voice. It's coming up in section 2. Focus on what you want, not on what you don't want. Kids' language processing, right? They're still in that language acquisition stage. They are until adolescence. So they're going to filter out. So if they're hitting and we're focusing, don't hit, hitting hurts. Why would you hit your friends? Hands are not for hitting. They're going to hear hit, 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 hit. So we want to get really clear on what is that skill we want them to have. We want them to ask for a turn. We want them to walk away. We want them to ask for help. We want them to use their big voice. Okay, so get clear on that skill we actually want them to have, not what we don't want them to do. And then we consistently hold boundaries with empathy, because sometimes boundaries aren't consistent with what the kid wants, but are in their best interest. And I still have a hard time when someone puts a limit on me, you know, when it's something I really want. I really wanted a painting by an artist that I really love. I was just having this conversation yesterday. My bank account put a limit on me, and I'm not very happy about it. Okay, but I've learned how to regulate through that. I can do hard things. Okay, it always ends in a meltdown. Meltdowns and tantrums are expectation incompatibility episodes. This is from Dr. Ross Green, whom I love, and his explosive child framework and the LSAP framework. So my expectations right now for that child are higher than what the child is capable of doing right now in this moment. Not always, but maybe the child's stressed out. And so impulse control is an expectation I have for that child. And right now they're not able to achieve that. So I need to help them. The other thing about meltdowns and tantrums to note is sometimes when a kid cries because we put a limit on them, it's them accepting the limit. It's literally like short wiring in the brain. This isn't what I want. This wasn't what I was expecting. I have to shut down the computer, right? This blue screen of death, the spinny wheel, the hourglass, whatever your computer does. It freezes, it shuts down, and then it reboots, and it's better. It's working again. So they're rebooting their brain with the tantrum. Tears express stress hormones. That's why we feel better after good cries. Kids are the same way. It's a very efficient way to work through stress. Last thing, I'm flying through these because I want to get to part 2 and take some questions if any have popped up. So Lauren, after this slide, if there are any questions, we'll go ahead and take them. And I was going to give you guys a break, but now I'm not. We'll just keep plugging away. So what is listening? You're not listening. I need you to listen. Are your listening ears on? Show me your listening ears are on. What is listening? Listening is a whole bunch of executive functions. I know. So paying attention is an executive function. I have to be able to shift my attention from what I'm really interested in, which is my shoelace, because there are now these strings hanging off of my feet that are really interesting and I can do cool creative things with. So I have to shift my attention from my shoelace to you talking in front of me. So that's shifting attention. Then I have to focus and discriminate all the other sensory input, all the other sounds, all my friends, all the touching, the floor on me, the colors on the walls, the lights flickering. I have to discriminate all these sensations and focus in on you. I have to control my impulses. Ooh, that's a shiny little piece of fuzzy right there. I want to grab that. And then I look over, my friend made a funny noise, and right, impulse control. Auditory processing. So now that I'm focused and I'm paying attention, you're making noise. This noise has meaning. It's coming into my brain. I've got to filter it out, make it sense. I've got to pull from my background knowledge to make sense of what you're saying. Then I've got to figure out how to act on that. So breaking it down, task analysis, breaking it down into smaller skills. So if you say it's time to go outside, get your jacket and line up, stop what I'm doing. Ooh, also an executive function, task completion, right? I've got to prioritize what you're saying is more important than what I'm doing right now, which, let's face it, most of the time for little kids, because they're egocentric, it's not. What they want to do is most important to them. It's rough, right? So then I've got to walk over, find my jacket. I've got to go ahead and put my jacket on. And remember, I have to turn it around my back and arms go through and then figure out the zipper. And then I have to walk over and, oh yeah, I've got to find my spot on the floor, my name. And then I've got to stand up and, oh, I've got to keep my hands down. That's listening. So when we say you're not listening or child is able to listen, what skills are we actually talking about? What do they need help with if they're not listening? Starting, again, taking that anthropological perspective and getting curious and remembering that not listening or being off task is the symptom of a missing skill that they probably need help with. So here's my little guy. This is the stillest he's ever sat in his life. So yeah, he's my little busybody, because we all have them, right? Bless his teachers. Okay. So on that note, not listening, I've given you guys puzzle pieces. I've built this strong foundation. I'd like to think we have a pretty strong foundation of brain development, what our kids need help with. And now part 2 is going to be how to help them. So before we shift gears, Lauren, are there any outstanding questions that have come in? Do you guys have any questions that have come up?
There actually are no questions. There is that question that you sort of pre-answered in the chat, but about the screaming. So I think we want to revisit that one in a little bit after you go through some of this information as far as strategies go. So if you just want to quickly look back at what it was about, and then you can just kind of tell me where you think it would fit.
Yep.
But otherwise, we're good to go.
Okay. All right, great. Yes. So the question, Lauren, I pulled it up on my app. So the question that
Okay.
I'm just gonna, because we can reference this. I was gonna do kids throwing blocks in the block center, because I don't know, when I was a teacher, the block center always seemed to get hands. And there are wooden blocks, guys. I don't know whose idea was that. When I taught my social skills classes, we had foam blocks, because I taught social skills classes, and all my kids were in there for impulse control, emotional regulation, like all the things. So I had a few kids all together with that, and we used foam blocks for that reason. Okay, so here's the dilemma. 3-year-old who screams at the top of her lungs. So now we know screaming is fight or flight. So she's all the way downstairs. Her threat detection system has been activated. Here's what's really interesting is it's a 3-year-old girl. So I was talking to Lauren prior to, and when we talk about aggressive behavior, boys typically, and this is genderized, some of it is biological, like hormones, testosterone does make us more aggressive. But it's also very much cultural. It's not appropriate for girls to, we're talking about gendered stereotypes. Girls are typically more likely to be reprimanded for being more physical than boys. So this little girl is already fitting into this gender stereotype, maybe just by default, but maybe it has been kind of imprinted on her. So she screams. It's still an aggression. It's still fight or flight, and cries when she doesn't get something she wants. Disappointment is the big feeling there. I really want that and I can't have it. I'm gonna scream to let you know how badly I want that. That is her message, I'm assuming. She's never happy when she asks you to put her hair in a ponytail. Maybe that's a connection bid, I'm not really sure. We'll talk about connection. Suggestions to get her voice or feelings as opposed to screaming. Okay, so again, we know that when she's screaming, we are not going to teach her what to do instead of scream. We're not going to prompt her, say, I feel sad when she's screaming. We're going to do a lot of proactive strategies. Then if she does get to the point where she's screaming and crying, we're going to help her feel safe. We're going to help validate, you really wanted that and you couldn't have a turn. That's hard when we can't get what we want. What do you want to do while we wait? So once we validate and we see the peak of the emotion and we start seeing her come down, that's when we can start giving her some solutions to that. So again, refresher, here's the brain. We're going to use proactive strategies to move up and down the ladder. We're going to adjust to kids, right? They might start going down. We can't just come from the top of the pyramid and try and pull them up. We've got to go down with them, help them feel safe, seen, understood, so that we can move up the ladder together. Co-regulation. And you have this pyramid, FYI, in the handouts that you'll get. So that's there. I won't do the screen switch right now. Okay, so sorry, this is the proactive. I just really wanted to acknowledge that if children are differently wired, so if you suspect like an autism label or maybe an ADHD or some kind of sensory. I know y'all had Willow on a couple weeks ago, or 2 weeks ago, talking about sensory stuff. These are really sensitive kids. That means that they have trouble feeling safe because they're usually in a state of hypervigilance. So typically that's why we see bigger behaviors. The same is true of trauma, kids in foster care, kids who have experienced a trauma. This is also very true of children living through a pandemic. There's a lot of stress at home. There's a lot of new things going on. Maybe mommy and daddy are really stressed out. There's just a lot that could activate this state of hypervigilance. So even more so now, it is so important that we are doing proactive strategies to help our kids feel safe and connected to us. And I just, on a personal note, when I talk about my kids' teachers, both of my boys are in school right now by the grace of God. And I get very emotional when I talk about my children's teachers. They put safety and connection above all else, which is one of the reasons why we're at that school. But they have just been such a godsend with working through this pandemic as well for us. So just a word of affirmation to you all, what you do at school, even for the kiddos, especially for the differently wired, for the high risk trauma kiddos, it matters so much what you're doing. It makes such an impact. So here's something really simple. It's simple, it's not easy, okay? So this is one of these strategies that I just absolutely love teaching teachers and parents. And it's behavior reflections. So I use behavior reflections. That's what our professor at UF called them in our language acquisition class. Becky Bailey from Conscious Discipline calls them noticing statements. Janet Lansbury and Dr. Laura Markham call them sportscasting. Narration, Say What You See is a whole book about these. Okay, that's how powerful they are. What they do, I'm going to tell you what they do, and then I'm going to tell you what they are. What they do is they establish both safety and connection. I'll explain a little bit about how they establish safety. They connect us by just saying, you notice me, I matter. Kids just want to feel adored, right? They want to be just celebrated for being. They're little miracles. I think of all the time, you know, my 6-year-old climbed on my lap a couple days ago, and I sat there and I just sat under the weight. He's a big kid. I sat under his weight and I was like, oh my God, you were 9 pounds when you were born. You sit on my chest. You know, they're miracles. And so just sharing that adoration just for being, that's what kids are so hungry for. And when we just notice them, that's what they're getting. Their soul and their heart is just getting filled up. They establish safety because oftentimes when adults notice children, we're evaluating them. Good job. You helped your friend. Oh, that was so nice. Good job. Here's, you know, and then rewarding. You can do this now, or come. What that does, any sort of evaluation activates hypervigilance. So even if I'm doing a good job, now I know you're evaluating me. So think of how you feel when you're being evaluated, when you're being watched, when your director comes in to take notes. In any context, right? So that means we get a little uneasy. We're a little more on guard. Our hypervigilance is activated. That means instead of tickling the prefrontal cortex, which non-judgmental statements do, we're tickling the brain stem. So we're simmering underneath and more likely ready to we're just uneasy, more irritable. So when we just do objective statements, we're noticing our children and we're connecting with them, and it's not evaluation, and we're bringing awareness. This is such a powerful tool. This is the first thing I do with kiddos who need help building self-awareness. You stacked the blue block on top. Now there are 5 blocks. The tower's getting so high. Oh, you noticed your friend was looking for her water bottle. You brought it over to her. That was helpful. And we're assigning a value to that, because then the you statements turn into I statements. I brought my friend a water bottle. I'm helpful. Okay, so the sportscasting could be, you got the red ball. You have the blue ball. Are you playing together? We're noticing these things. Then the way that this leads into looking past the behavior and seeing the message behind it is when something goes wrong. So when you have the red ball and now Johnny is screaming and crying because he wanted the red ball. He didn't get what he wanted. So this goes back to the little girl screaming when she doesn't get what she wants. You want to turn with the red ball and Johnny's holding it in his hand. Or was Johnny the crying boy? I don't know. I'll just use my kids' names because it makes it easier. Okay, so, oh, Eli's holding the red ball. You really wanted to turn with that. Oh, waiting's really hard. Come here. What do you want to do while you wait? Right, so that's sportscasting. We're taking those noticing statements one step further, and we're not judging them. It's just, I see you, you matter. So to help you guys out, what I did, because I found this is one of the first habits I broke when I was a teacher. So I gave you a few little cheat sheets. Where are they? Down here. You action. You picked up the car so that it's safe or we don't step on it. That was helpful. So you action so that the impact it had and the value we want to teach. Is it on the other page? The other thing you can do, so what do I say instead of good job? I love saying, you did it. Look at you. Wow. Just relishing, and you did it, because then what's so cool is you'll hear kids say, I did it. Miss Kaylee, look what I did. Hear that pride? There's no, where's my gold star? I did it. Can I have a candy now? Can I have a sticker now? It's just this internal, I did it. Wow, look at my picture. I made a collage. You did do it. You picked all different materials and put it on that piece of paper. How do you feel about that? Wow. Internal motivation instead of searching, hypervigilance for something. Gosh, I love it when, that just lights me up when kiddos do that kind of stuff. I did it.
Okay. Kaylee?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
We have had 2 questions come in. So check your chat if you can really quick, and then you can figure out if we've gotten to a point where you can answer that.
In Zoom?
I pinned in the app on your phone.
Okay.
I pinned them to the top, so they should show up first.
How do we communicate that with children that are being aggressive in the classroom? Aha. We're going to get to that. What can we do when children screams playing with friends? We're going to get to that too. Okay, cool.
Alrighty, thanks.
Perfect. Wait, hold on. Let me just make sure. I'll tell you guys when we're going to get to it. I believe we're going to get to it. These are all proactive. See this section when proactive strategies don't work because they won't always. Okay. Behavior reflections. So I promise we're going to get to the aggressive behavior. Here's the thing, we can decrease the aggressive behavior. So once the aggressive behavior starts, we're in crisis management mode. We're not in teaching mode. So the first thing I want you guys to understand is that when a kid is being aggressive, when they're being aggressive, you can't communicate with them. All that brain is able to process is whether you are there to help or you're a threat. If you're talking, they cannot process that language. That's just overstimulation. That overstimulation is adding to the threat. If you are there, I'm here to keep you safe. I'm not going to let you do that. So you're helping them with those impulses to keep them safe. that's going to be calm. That's why those mindset shifts are so important, because that helps change our energy from I'm going to try and control and stop this behavior to I'm here to help this behavior. Because children, the threat processing, that's all energy. That's what they're picking up on. So we're going to get to that, but first is proactive stuff, so we get to that crisis management less frequently. Okay, so assertive voice, focus on what you want. We talked about that. KISS, keep it simple, silly. We talked about not using a lot of words. I just explained by using a lot of words isn't helpful when kids are being aggressive, and it's not helpful in general because language processing is difficult. Kids aren't always paying attention, or they shift their attention late, and they're going to hook on to the main words that you say. So if you're focusing on not hitting, they're going to hit more. If you're focusing on asking for a turn, they're going to focus on that more. So get clear on your priority. What is the most important right now? When you've got 12, 15 kids in a classroom and they're going in 10 different directions, we used to call it triage when I worked in a gym. Who's more likely to hurt themselves worse doing what they're doing right now? Those are the people I gotta go help first. Who's in the most imminent danger? That's who I gotta go help first. Which friends are about to get in a scuffle and really add to this explosive energy? That's who I have to get help first. Teachers, most teachers are masterful at this, but the reason why we've got to get clear on our priority is because it's physical. If we're yelling across the room, stop doing that, stop, don't hit your friend, sit down, come over here, and then we're not facilitating it, it's not a priority because we're not willing to take action, or something else is beckoning our actions more. So that's our priority. And we're devaluing our own language. I can tune you out. What you're saying doesn't really matter because you're not backing it up. And then we can blend assertive choices, or assertive voice with choices, which is on the next slide. So the assertive voice formula, once you get clear on what's the most important, who you need to go help first, who you're willing to take action for. So this is the move first, talk later. It's time to is a good lead in. It's important to. It's important to put the caps on the marker so they don't dry out. It's time to line up, walk over to the door. Or it can be, Ethan, get your water bottle before you line up to go out to the playground. Okay, so assertive voice practice. I hear a lot of passive voices. This is super common in the South because we're really polite. We don't want to be seen as pushy or domineering. So we ask a lot of questions. Are you ready to go? You need to clean up, okay? So those are the two pretty much the most common things I hear in classrooms. Every now and then, this is more common with parents, I think, but line up now or we're not going. If you don't clean that up, you can't play with it later. We'll get a little aggressive. So those aren't assertive voices. It's passive, aggressive, and then passive. Are you ready to go? No. It's, oh, I can't see it with my picture. It's time to get your backpack on and put both feet on your blue square or blue dot. Walk over to the door like this, stand on your spot like this. So show them, kids are visual learners, right brain dominant, show them what they need to be doing. That's why raise your hands like this. I would pull this out every circle time because we need visual prompts every time. Every store right now has visuals reminding me how to wear a mask properly. And yet some people still don't wear them properly. Okay, so if adults need reminders on how to wear masks properly, children with underdeveloped prefrontal cortexes certainly need visual reminders of how to sit and raise your hands. Sit on the carpet like this, crisscross, see my legs? Look, hands are here, hands in lap, so we're safe. So we don't get stepped on our fingers, put your hands in your lap. It's important to. Raise your hand if you have something to say, like this. Look, his hand is up. I might want to find a visual with his mouth closed. He was just really happy, right? Because they talk when they raise their hands. Everybody knows that. You need to clean up, okay? I tell parents, I'm like, and teachers, if you ask them a question, they can say no. And then what are you going to do? So Eli, put the cars in the orange bucket like this. I will help. That's the physical proximity. Proactive connection activities. You guys already do this. There is so much in circle time. Just adding a little intention about it, maybe adding some more rituals create safety in the brain. So going to school, even the ritual of entering the classroom. Let me grab this visual. I was telling Lauren, I have visuals spread out all over the futon. So this is a safe keeper book I made for my child when he started preschool. And this is a safety thing I'll talk about later with the visuals. I'll just start here. So here are the pictures that demonstrated like the visuals, right? His right brain dominant. When I get ready for school, I wear my special school shirt. Mommy or daddy brings me to school. Then the part I wanted, so it went through his school day. It went through his big emotion. So this is a pre-teaching. I'm not going to pull this out when he is feeling sad. This is a pre-teaching. I think I might feel happy at school. I might feel sad or scared. Look, there's him crying. His brother was comforting him, which is why I snapped the picture. How sweet is that? If I feel sad or scared, I can smile, take a deep breath, and remember. Remembering tickles that prefrontal cortex. Missing somebody is in the emotional brain. I miss you. Remembering is in the prefrontal cortex. I can remember mommy and daddy will be back after nap time. Here's the safe keeper. So here's a morning ritual, which is why I brought this up. This is a little picture of him with a Velcro dot on the back. This is a picture of my husband and I. No, that's my husband, sorry, backwards. My husband and I were his safe keepers at home. This is a picture of Miss Rachel, his teacher last year. Miss Rachel is my safe keeper at school. They're there to keep me safe. So he could move himself from my husband and I, we keep him safe at home, to Miss Rachel keeps him safe at school.
30 minutes.
Okay, I'm good.
30.
So all of those rituals, all these little things, if kiddos do these little things daily, if you sing the morning songs are rituals, classroom cheers, I'm here to keep you safe, you're here to help keep it safe. Those are all unifying activities. We already talked about noticing without judgment, stop, go, or 1, 2, 3 games, building suspense. So if you've got a kid that is super dysregulated coming into your classroom, you can spend this time connecting with them by either playing little games of like peekaboo or 1, 2, 3 games, building suspense, like stop, go, like ready, set, go. Oh, I'm gonna get you, go, 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 stop. Right, so those kind of things to build suspense. And then mirroring, just sitting with the kid and doing what they're doing and waiting for them to make the first connection bid, look over to you instead of going up to them and trying to push a connection, wait for them to do it. And the best way to do that is just by being with them, sitting with them, having your co-teacher go over, whoever's available, and just sitting next to them, doing what they're doing, literally just going and stacking blocks next to them, parallel play. And waiting for them to notice you. And then entering in with one of those noticing statements. So if you have a few kids that have trouble managing big feelings, this is the first kind of stuff I would do. I would give them some safety support, some rituals, and I would do these little connection activities, especially the mirroring. Confident momentum. So this is why that assertive voice and getting really clear on what our priorities are so important. We keep moving. Oh, don't ask, okay, please. If it's a command, make sure you're fully present. So these kind of things like, you really wanted that and you can't have it. This is hard. And then keep moving. We're not going to do it. Teachers are really, really masterful at this, mostly. I mean, you have to keep moving, right? You've got a ton of kids in your class. So not getting sucked in, not micromanaging as long as they're safe. And we're going to talk about that safe place or calming corner in a few slides, unhooking or continuing to move forward. And the next step is helpful. Empowering kids with a visual routine. So if you have a schedule in your classroom, please make sure it's visual. So the pictures, oh, here's another. I don't have the easy access to it. The pictures match the words, and then it's eye level. And I've seen a lot lately, I've seen a lot of schedules go from top to bottom. It's honestly, it's better if it goes left to right and it's all eye level with the children where they can see it. And then you have a schedule keeper, a child in pre-K4, you know, who's moving the point of the day throughout. This is the visual schedule we use in my house. It's magnet, the kids do it every day. That's my 3.5-year-old adding his own little spin to it. It creates clarity. Clarity feels safe. I know what to expect. It deals with expectation management. If something different is going on to that day, you can point that out. This is why those morning meetings, most of the time teachers are so great already about doing it, but it's easier to process because children are right brain dominant and right brain is visual. Okay. So probably what y'all have been waiting for. What happens when none of this works? None of it works. Now, this is an RTI thing, right? So we hope that by putting all of these other things in place, we're going to have to do this less. We're going to have to go into crisis management less, but not always. It's going to happen. Kids have big feelings. So we enforce the limit. We focus on what we want. We've done the assertive voice. We've done the confident momentum. We've moved on. We've given them choices. We've tried the playful situation. We've done all these things. I wanted to point out real quick that when a child, the conditional yes, sometimes that's easier for them to digest. So if you have a child that's more sensitive to disappointment, that is a very dysregulating feeling for them, you can grant it in fantasy, like, oh, you just want to eat all the cookies all the time. I bet when you're a grown-up, you're going to have cookies for lunch every day. Oh man, wouldn't that be so silly? Okay, so granting it in fantasy kind of gives them that hit of happy hormones right away. Conditional yes, yeah, we're going outside after lunch. And you're saying this at 10 a.m. And then here's the thing, consequences. I wanted to just say this, we're not going to spend a lot of time here. Consequences are not to be given when a child is having a hard time. Remember, when they're in that aggressive state, we're focusing on providing them with safety. So we want to give it to them proactively as a choice. You can do this and this will happen. And it's not a threat. This is really what will happen. So you can put your jacket on and you'll probably be more comfortable outside during recess. Or you cannot put your jacket on and you might get really cold. Which one works best for you? And that's just an example I used with my own kid the other day. So in order to make choice-making decisions, we have to be in our prefrontal cortex. So this is either happening well before when the kid is still calm and not agitated, or after they've had the tantrum, after they've had the meltdown, and now we've reconnected and now we're able to talk about it. Okay, so do's and don'ts of a tantrum. This is a handout that you guys will have. Do, get the child into a safe, private place. Sometimes it's easier to move the child there. Sometimes it's safer to give them the space. So wherever they are, it really depends. If there's a lot of projectiles where they are, if there's a lot of kiddos where they are, it might be easier to, just pick that kid up depending on how big and strong they are. Get that child to a safe, private place. Don't micromanage the behavior. Don't throw that, put that down. That remember, we're just adding to the dysregulation if we're giving them verbal prompts. At this point, the prompts are physical. Move, physically enforce the safety boundaries. If we give any demands to that child, demands are a threat. The brain registers it as a threat. Don't throw that, put that down. I'm not going to let you throw that. I'm going to keep you safe. We're the safe keeper. If you throw that, you're not going to be allowed back in that center today. That's a threat. Okay. I'm not going to let you throw that. I'm going to keep you safe. Focus on your own regulation. Remember, children cannot be in a higher brain state than what we are. So if we're going downstairs and we're getting really worked up and dysregulated, the child is going to, you're getting sucked down with that child. So focus on your own regulation and tell yourself, I am safe. Probably one of the most, I don't know, I was bit a couple weeks ago, magnetile was thrown at me. One of probably the most scariest situations, it was an older kid, he was 7, and we were in a therapy office, and he found his way into the break room, and there was a toolbox sitting on the counter. Chairs are honestly pretty easy to block because they're big. Hammers and toolboxes are a little scarier, right? So what I had to do, he was cornered in the kitchen. What I had to do is first not focus on him, focus on the toolbox and removing the danger, and then telling myself, I am safe, I can handle this. Then once I removed that, right, we're setting up the environment, we're scanning, because they're not capable of overriding the impulses, we're scanning the environment for them to help keep them safe. That's my number one job. I'm here to keep you safe. I'm not going to let you do that. It's very gentle. Soften the body. If we're like this and we're puffed up and we look ready to fight, their threat detection system says you're a threat. And so they're going to lash out more at you. If you come in soft and calm and curious and quiet, they're gonna be more receptive eventually.
Kaylee, quick question.
Yep.
Someone asked how early you can start using visual schedules. Like
Instant
ages.
room.
So
I say all age, no, not like, okay, if they're 3 months old, I mean, they can't, they're eye tracking, right? Can't focus on a picture. Right. But even a like 6-month-old, look, here's Meet Our Family. This is a book that my eldest gave my youngest when he was born. And this is just a cute little example, but if you've got kiddos, you know, coming home, young kids, 1-year-olds in your care center that are coming in and having a really hard time, it doesn't have to be fancy. This was made on a website. This is fancy because it was his, you know, Welcome to the World book. But this is 8.5 by 11, cut in half with Sharpie marker, printed out, laminated with these little rings, right? So it can be a really quick flip book of there's mommy, or, you know, bottle, nap, mommy, you know, very basic. I'd say at 18 months, 2 years old is when my little guy really started paying attention. And in fact, I really leaned in hard on it. We got away from it for a while, and then I leaned in hard once the world shut down last March, and the world, our world just became uncertain and scary and unpredictable. And my husband and I were in a big fear place at that point for a lot of different reasons. And so I started the visual schedule again. And so my Eli was 2.5, and he would go up and point and repeat the day over and over again. It was his little ritual. He was helping self-soothe himself. It was helping him feel safe. I get a little emotional talking about it. That was a really scary time. And that brought a lot of comfort to our family, to my boys during that time. So yeah, I'm a huge advocate. And if you have a kiddo who you suspect autism, they don't need a diagnosis for these supports, right? If you've got a kiddo that's having a really, really hard time with it, you can make them their own schedule book like this. You know, so you get dropped off at school, here's the hallway you walk through, here's your classroom, this is your playground, then we have playground time, then you come in and you take a nap, you know, for them to flip through, because it's very empowering for them. It helps them feel safe. Anyway, so the calming corner, I want to talk about this because we love these, right? They're super cute. They're beautiful. There's so many resources. We can throw up all kinds of things like calming strategies, things to help me feel happy. Look, the beach is on my calming strategy. Wouldn't that be nice if I could just leave and drive to the beach every time I feel sad? So, you know, these are my happy, like, calming strategies. They're so fun to make. They're very rarely applied correctly, because they can either become timeout, go to the calming corner until you calm down. That's timeout. That's the same thing. They need to be pre-taught. So remember, co-regulation, feeling safe happens with the primary caregiver first. So we're going to have lessons about the calming corner. If you're having a hard time, if you're feeling worried, look, this little boy is worried. If you're feeling worried, hold on, let me get it. This is when I need my stuff. Okay. Here are my conscious discipline feeling buddies. You know, if you're feeling angry, oh, look at that angry face. You can even use, I love this book, Baby Faces. Oh, yucky. If you don't like something, oh, if you're feeling sad, look, she's crying, she's feeling sad. You can go over to the calming quarter. Let's go see what the calming quarter is. Now, we don't want to focus on the calming strategies right away. They need somewhere to hide. They need something to snuggle. They need pictures of their caregivers. In the pre-primary class at my kids' school, they all had their family pictures in the calming corner. And I was there so much helping with friends. They'd take their mommy's picture down and they would hold it while they cried. I'm talking 18 months old would go over and snuggle in those pillows and cry with mommy's picture. I mean, just give me a minute. That's so adorable, right? So pictures of caregivers, a soft place to punch, like a foam pillow. Look, you can come over here and you can let it all out. Show them. When you pick them up and you need to remove them from a situation, you're having a really hard time, honey. I'm here to keep you safe. You go sit with them in the calming corner first. So when it's their first experience, they don't go there by themselves. You go with them. I would see the toddler teachers picking the kids up and pretzeling themselves into the calming corner and holding the toddler. And then eventually the little person would get down off of them and go sit. You can sit next to them. This is what safety feels like. Okay, so that's how we use the calming corner. And then eventually they gain confidence. Then they can go over there and they know what to do. Then when the emotion peaks and they're feeling sad, then you have the regulation tools up there, the different breaths. If you've pre-taught these breaths at circle time, we need to pre-teach these. The little visual prompts, this is what they can do. I can look at a book. I can turn on music. I mean, whatever, I can go to the beach. No, I'm kidding. Whatever, you know, is useful in your classroom. You've pre-taught all those calming strategies during calm times where their brain is ready to learn. This is a safe feeling. I can handle this. Maybe put a mirror in there so they recognize their own feelings. Yes, ma'am.
We're getting kind of close. We got about 15 minutes.
Yep.
And you've got some questions. All
right. So now that was really it in terms of the PowerPoint presentation. Now I want to hear questions. Can I turn my speaker view on? Sorry, it's really weird. I want to hear questions because I want to take a few scenarios and walk through them with all of those tools we just did. And I also, if we do have time, I have some books that I love to share. But again, I can get that book list over to Lauren because, I mean, you know, it's just easier to have a list to reference.
Absolutely. So question number 1, how do we communicate with children that are being aggressive in the classroom?
Okay, so you can't communicate with children who are being involved in the classroom, like when they're in their aggressive state. So the first thing you do when you go over is you go over to the child and you want to physically intervene. So this is where sports casting or those behavior reflections are going to be your friend in this situation. If they're getting aggressive, your first job is to stop them from being aggressive, is to create safety. So if they're on top of a friend, we're going to pick them up. If they've got their arm cocked and they're ready to throw something, we're going to go ahead and bring that down. Okay. And then, wow, non-judgmental. Uh-oh, what is going on here? Wow, you seem really upset. And then see if they respond to you. If they switch, that might be what they need. They might not be fully downstairs. Yeah, he took my book and I wasn't done with it. He knocked over my tower. Okay, now we know we're in the emotional brain because there are words. So we've moved up a level. Okay, so, oh, you weren't done using that. So now we're using that positive intent. You weren't done using that. You wanted to turn and he took it. You wanted to turn with his block. Now we can teach skills. Each child feels heard. We've got to the underlying need. And now you want to turn with that ask. Can I have a turn, please? Okay, so now can I have a turn? And he says, no, I'm not done using it. I wanted it for mine. Oh, you weren't done with that. Okay, tell him I'm not done with that. You can have a turn when I'm done. Now your job actually is going to be, because now we've taught this skill, the aggression, if we focus on that, well, don't hit. Hitting's not how you do that. We're reinforcing, hit, hit, hit. We focus on what we want. We just facilitated the conversation. We just modeled what we want. We just taught the skill by walking them through it and facilitating it. Now, actually, what we're going to do is we're going to take the kiddo who has trouble with impulse control and waiting, because waiting's hard for everybody, but especially early childhood, and we're going to help that kid wait. So we're not focusing on the hitter, because what if the hitter was really justified? He said, no, you can't use that. And the kid kept trying to get his stuff. Like the little girl who was trying to take the baby doll out of the center, and I was just trying to stop her because it was against the rules, right? Sometimes it's justified. And so we've got to figure it out. We've got to help give them the skills, and we got to focus on what we want, not what we don't want. So just remember, we've got to move up the ladder. We can't start focusing on the aggression, because then we're going to get more of it. So,
yeah. Question 2. What can we do when a child screams while playing with friends, and most of the times going really close to their face to do that? So it sounds like boundaries, a boundary question.
Boundary issues. I'm called in a lot for this. This is one of my favorite skills to teach. So a lot of time, well, there's a lot of things going on, and you know, when kids are having a really hard time with physical boundaries, I always like to get an OT involved too. Maybe it's my special ed background, right? But I just like to get a full snapshot of what's really going on. If mom and dad don't like the OT suggestion, then what we can do as teachers in the classroom is, the missing skill for this child is self-awareness. They probably aren't aware, like perspective taking, they probably aren't aware that they are this close to this child, and I'm talking really loud and you're really close to me. You don't need to talk that loud. I have one of these children. My 3-year-old has a very high volume. So what do? Wow, you're really close to him. Look, you're so close. Take a step back. You want to turn with that. Tell him, I want to turn. Oh, wow, your voice is really loud. Make your voice match mine. I want a turn, please. Oh, you want to turn. Okay, so we're drawing attention to it first. That first skill is self-awareness. You're really close. We're not judging at first, right? That's not our go-to. He doesn't, and then you can say, oh, look at his face. You're really close. He doesn't feel safe. Take a step back. Help him feel safe. Now tell him your message. Your message is you want to turn. Okay, he's not ready to give you a turn. So then this leads into how to help a kid who scream and yell to show they're impatient. They're impatient because they feel like their message isn't being heard. If we just keep telling them, it's not your turn, it's not your turn, you have to wait, it's not your turn, we're not answering their message. Their message is, I really want it now. I hear you, you really want it now. It's hard to wait when you want something and you can't have it. We can do this or this while you wait. And if they keep screaming, we keep going back to, I hear you. You know what? And it's okay. This is a self-inventory thing you have to do for yourself. Is this becoming a safety issue? So is it really hurting your ears? Do you have kiddos who maybe are more sound sensitive? So you know what? The child may need a break. You're getting really upset and you're continuing to yell. And that's when the director comes in, or whomever is your behavioral support or your teacher's assistant, or whoever's in there with you. Hey, she needs to go on a walk. She just needs to calm down and get some of that energy out of her body. So yelling is a cathartic release. That's why when we're really angry, we get super dysregulated. Stop! it's a cathartic release. It's not a conscious decision. It's the same with kids. So we need to give them another way to release that. Typically walking or moving, gross motor is going to be a way to do that. And if they need to get it out outside of the classroom to keep everybody else's ears safe, it's not a punishment. We're teaching a skill and we're helping them and helping our kids. So the way we present it becomes really important too.
We have another question come in, but I think you just answered it. In your explanation of that other one, the question was how to help kids who scream, yell, and I think it meant to say, and they're very impatient. So you kind of tackled that already. So a different question is, how do we deal with really silly behavior and the child being out of control to impress the other ones, and then the trickle effect of everybody joining in and, you know, anarchy?
Yeah. So this is,
because we all have one of those.
I know. And it's my child. The teacher, no, not yet, because anyway. Okay, so this silly behavior, this is dysregulation too. And here's the thing, is these kiddos who like to be in the spotlight, they are gifted, right? So then the question becomes, how do I harness this energy, this, what is it, this effervescent quality. And here's a name I want you to Google. His name is DJ Baptiste with Conscious Discipline. Okay, so DJ, there's a YouTube video. Becky Bailey did a podcast with him, which, I mean, had me in tears. So DJ was a senior in high school, got all the way to high school, and the first day of high school, he sexually harassed his teacher. And she self-regulated herself. She didn't really acknowledge his behavior. She kept moving the class. And then afterwards, she said, you know, DJ, I noticed something about you. And he'll tell you at this point in his schooling career, he was so used to just being sent out of the classroom. That's what he expected, to be met with force. Force equals force. We get a power struggle. She said, it seems like you really like to make your friends laugh. How would you like to be my classroom greeter every day? You help me take attendance. You say hi to the classmates who are walking in, and you can tell a funny joke. Try and make them laugh every time. And it changed his life. This had been a kid who'd been sent to juvie, and I mean, you know, he was going down that road. It changed his life, and now he works for Conscious Discipline. So look up that story. When we start trying to find that positive intent. So when you get a kid, bringing it back to preschool, when you get a kid who is really silly and likes to, you know, get friends on their bandwagon and draw attention away from you, give them a job. Hey, it seems like you really want to be up here with me. Do you want to sit on my lap? Or do you want to sit next to me? Do you want to hold the book? Whoa, or just notice, whoa, it looks like you're being really silly. You're laughing so much. Wow, look at your body. It's moving all over the place. And freeze. And ready, go, wiggle, 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 and freeze. So we're channeling that, right? And now we're turning it into a connection activity, the stop, go, 1, 2, 3 activity. Silly, 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 stop. And guess what? Now, everybody's looking at you. You're well connected with that group of children, in particular that one. And now, okay, let's go over here. Now we can channel it and give them a job. But yeah, for those kids, connection first, noticing first, try and harness it into a job when acts of service automatically activate executive function, which is why classroom jobs are so helpful.
Couple more.
Okay.
Next is, I have a really hard time spending the time that it takes to help a child win in safe space. Even though I have a co-teacher, it can take 15 minutes or even longer to help a child regain control. Do you have any suggestions?
I'm curious if this is, I'm going to assume this is like one particular child or maybe a couple. Okay. So I'm curious about that. But if it's one particular child, what I would do is, again, I would make a little book, a routine book about what to do with my big feelings. So this can be, you know, when I'm feeling angry or whatever feeling, when I'm feeling disappointed, when I'm missing my mom, whatever, or it could be several emotions that come up for this child the most often. So we pre-teach with this child. I can go into my safe space. Mrs. Smith will sit with me and help me feel safe. When she needs to leave to help other friends or to, you know, help other friends, we'll just say that. These are the things that I can do. I can hold a picture of my family. I can snuggle the snuggly, now conscious of Bailey bear, but you know, a teddy bear or whatever. If they have their own lovey, if this is a child that really has trouble with emotional regulation, you know, go get their lovey. Here it is, honey. I'll be right back to check on you. So it's okay. We can hold this connection. Yesterday on my Instagram, I posted this visualization of a life buoy. You know, so sometimes we don't want to sit right there with our kid, or we can't. We're becoming so dysregulated, or we have to go do other things. We can stay connected and not be right there with them. But offering the reassurance, pre-teaching it, is really, really helpful.
Okay. And then this last one, we want to circle back to the one we asked before that you just kind of put a pin in, about the 3-year-old who was screaming and cries when she doesn't get something she wants or is never happy when she asks you to put her hair in a ponytail. So I'm guessing the child is unhappy no matter what, even when she asks for something specific, she is still dissatisfied.
So I actually had a client with this exact situation. It was about how many times the ponytail was an issue, and it was getting ready for school. And then the daughter would, you know, not like that, mommy, or it hurts, or I don't like that. And mom was so scared that it was a sensory issue. Well, what if it really bothers her? And I said, look, regardless of if it is a sensory issue or not, the choice is the hair is up or down. Typically, this becomes an issue of a child really wanting a confident leader who can assert a really assertive boundary. Boundaries feel safe. When kids know expectations and know where they have to move, where the guardrails are, that helps them feel safe. So you know what, Lisa, I'm willing to put your hair up, and I'm willing to put it up 2 different ways. If you don't like the first one, then we can do it again. If you don't like the second one, I'm all done. So from the get-go, laying out really clear expectations and boundaries, and understanding that it probably has nothing to do about the hair. It probably has some other connection, and this is the way she has learned, just through life and experience, or maybe her own dysregulation system, to get connection bids. So we want to try and find proactive ways to connect with her, whether it be a safekeeper ritual, whether it be a little I love you ritual, song, handshake that you do with her when she comes in the classroom, a job that she gets to do, so we empower her. You know, one that doesn't rotate every week, but one that is just hers. The other thing too is I love these books, and this is pre-teaching, again, not in the moment. So things, Cornelia Mons Spellman, she has, look, I think I have all of them at this point. She has a ton of these, The Way I Feel books. This one is When I Feel Good About Myself. So trying to help kids, goes into self-awareness. What do you love about yourself? What are your likes? What are your dislikes? You know, and these are really popular lessons that we do in the beginning of the year, like all about me and learn about me. It would be really cool to have these up year round and see how they change and revisit them, because a part of this too is ways that I calm myself, things that I like, things that help me feel safe. So those are really great things to have up, because then she's getting to know herself more. So strong boundaries and being able to give her some connection to fill her cup. She might be a leaky cup kid. So you just keep pouring in and it just keeps bottling up. I would also be curious about what's going on in her life. She might need a little extra support there. The author again is Cornelia Maud Spellman. And Julie, I can email you, but I can also post these. I use these in my social skills classes when I was teaching specifically, so I love them very much.
Okay, I'm going to do one more quick check of the questions, but it looks like we have answered all of them. So Kaylee, if you want to, do some, last minute words or tips or whatever before we sign off, that'd be awesome.
Okay, yeah, if I could, I'm gonna do a quick rundown of some books that I love. For kids that are having a hard time missing mommy and daddy, this is pretty popular. It's like The Kissing Hand in kindergarten, but The Invisible String. This would be if you need lesson plan ideas for this week. Super cute for Valentine's Day. I did this for my kiddo. My husband and I went on an overnight getaway I went away for 3 days to my grandfather's funeral. That's what it was. And I hadn't been away from my kids in like a year or 2 years. So I made them a little heart with a picture of me and the invisible string and a picture of them. And so it was like a concrete representation. Again, so this talks about we're always connected, even if we can't see them. So that's a really cute conversation if you've got kids missing. The other thing I want to talk about is The Rabbit Listened. So oftentimes, this is a great book. This is by Corey Dorfeld. Oftentimes when kids are in crisis mode, we want to fix it. So that's what I hear when people say, well, what if she's screaming when she doesn't like it? What if the goal here is not to fix the feeling? The goal is to help the feeling feel safe. So we're there to listen. So this is about a little child named Taylor who builds a ginormous block tower. Birds come and knock over the block tower. Taylor's really upset, very sad. All different animals come in. The chicken was the first to notice. The chicken wants to talk about it. How are you feeling? Why do you feel mad? What happened? Talk, talk, talk. So all these animals, the bear wants to get mad. The elephant wants to forget. But the rabbit just sits and listens. And then Taylor slowly becomes ready to rebuild. Okay, so if you want a quick lesson about empathy, if you want a quick lesson about how to help kids feel safe with their big feelings, The Rabbit Listened is a wonderful book. I use it to teach kids and parents. This is a beautiful book. Becky Bailey's books, she has Sophie board books for littles, for toddlers, and then these are for ages 4 to 8, I believe. So they're VPK level Schubert books, Sophie and Schubert books. Jabari books. Oh man, do I love some Jabari books. Jabari Jumps is about being brave. And then this is her newest one that just came out. This is about Jabari Tries. He's trying to build a flying machine and he took a tiny rest. And his dad comes over, and if you want a quick scripting, this is it. His dad says, I see you're really upset. I'm frustrated, said Jabari. It looks like a frustrating problem, said his dad. When I'm frustrated, I gather up all my patience, take a deep breath, and blow away all the mixed feelings inside. And then you try again, Jabari said. And then I try again, said his dad. So I love Jabari Tries by Gaia Cornwell and Jabari Jumps. These are two of my kids' absolute favorite books. And it has a father figure in it. Dad is in both Jabari books, which I really love to see father figures in literature because it's rare. Usually it's, kids and moms. So that is it for me, guys. Thank you so much. If you want to find me, I post regularly on social media, on Instagram and Facebook. You can find me at Kaylee Kukla, CALEYKUKLA. And I just got on TikTok last night. No promises. I'm gonna hire a high schooler to post on my TikTok. I think I've decided. I'm too old.
We can't be that old, Kaylee. Oh my gosh.
Oh my God.
But when you said over 10 years from college, I was like, oh my God, you're right. You know, 5 children later between the two of us, a lot
I was
has
going to say between the two
definitely
of us.
changed. Yeah, between the two of us. Yes, that's a lot of children. But I would like to say thank you on behalf of everyone attending and UMAP for lending your brain on a Saturday morning, definitely. But I also would like to mention to everyone that this is not the last session. We actually have session 5 that is going to be February 20th. So 2 weeks from, I can't math right now. I think it's 2 weeks from today. We will have our closing session. It's a little bit confusing in the Hoover app because for some reason we couldn't post it with the agenda. I don't know, but come back on February 20th and we will have the rest. I also promise that we will figure out how to get you the resources to get Kaylee's handouts, the presentation and all the good stuff and the book list. So Kaylee, if you want to just get that list together for me, you can forward it to me and I will figure out a way to get it to everyone who would like it. So happy Saturday, everybody. Stay safe, stay sane, and remember that you are playing an important part with these little people and helping them figure out how to communicate their big feelings. Have a wonderful weekend.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.